I'm starting this one off in alt mode because there's a lot to show off in the robot mode, but for those of you who missed my top 20 figures of 2021, which you should check out by the way, this is my number 1 figure of last year, and it became one of my top figures like ever, like easily number 2 or 1. But why? Well, most of that lies in the robot mode, but the vehicle mode is still really cool. This is Iron Factory's Ultra Magnus, the second version I believe, and it's based off the IDW design, I think. It's a very stylized take on Magnus, but I dig it. However, I'm not the biggest fan of all the guns on it, so I'm just gonna take those off. That's better. Now, before I get really into this, I just want to mention that I started up the Patreon again because YouTube keeps changing the whole revenue thing and it's taking more from creators and stuff, and it's just really annoying. So you do not have to do this if you do not want to. Don't feel obligated to do anything. Like, it's there if you want to do it. If not, that's completely fine. Totally up to you. $1 a month to start, and you're gonna get like, there's also other tiers that get you like extra videos and extra content, exclusive live streams, maybe a podcast, polls, etc. So you can go check it out if you want. It'll be linked in the description down below, but again, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. And now, thanks for letting me get through that. Now back onto the actual toy. Magnus is chunky. This is an Iron Factory toy, and they're known for being like on the chunkier side as Legend scale. And you might think, oh, Legend scale, that means he's small, right? No, he is not. Here's a deluxe car mode, and here's a Voyager truck mode. It's about the size of a Voyager, pretty much. It's a big figure for Iron Factory, bigger than I was expecting, and honestly, it makes it just a little bit better, because that way you can use all of the articulation that the robot mode has to its fullest, but more on that later. The vehicle mode doesn't really do anything apart from sit there and look menacing. Everyone talking about MPM-12 Prime's cat ears, but look at this thing. It's got major cat, like they're bigger than MPM-12s. If I really felt like transforming that figure, I'd show you, but it's packed away right now. The cab on the truck is really undersized compared to the trailer, and I haven't read More Than Meets the Eye in ages, so I don't remember if it was like that all the time, but honestly, for this design they were trying to pull off, it kind of works. He can hold other Legends cars on top, but not really inside. Like, you can kind of shove something in there, which is a bit of a shame, but oh well. He does come with a Minimus Ambush, which, if you aren't familiar, in IDW, the original Magnus died in battle, but they had these smaller dudes drive the Magnus body. That way it helps inspire people more in the war, till everybody found out, and then I think Minimus dies or something. I can't remember. But Minimus is alright. It's not the best looking alt mode because like everything is just hanging out and he doesn't tab in unless the gun is there. Like his legs don't tab into each other, which is kind of annoying. But for a small pack-in, it's alright. Minimus transforms very easily, and it's an okay transformation, but the robot feels a little disproportionate, and the kibble kind of makes it hard to stand, but then again, this is a freebie pack-in bonus, so it's not that bad. Overall, the alt mode of Magnus it's really good. I like it a lot. It's basically a brick, but it's a nice brick. One of those like chonky things you could probably chuck through a window, but anyways, don't do that. On to the robot mode. Transformation is actually neat. It does a bunch of things you wouldn't really expect from a Magnus to pull off this really cool and really fun experience in the conversion. You can also put Minimus inside the figure as you go along, and you end up with this. This is such a good looking Magnus. The heft, the detail, the paint, the color separation, it's really cool. This looks like what the name Ultra Magnus means to me in my brain. This just looks like a big stomping powerhouse, which is what that name feels like when you say it. So I love that. I love the little tampagraphs on this guy, like the caution and stuff. Makes it look a lot bigger in certain photos. That's part of the attention to detail I really like on this guy. Other things like the brass knuckles on this dude, that's just hilarious. I mean, they're not as hilarious as saying punish and enslave on brass knuckles, but close enough. All the painted lines are super clean and crisp. Nothing bleeds or comes outside of those lines, making the entire robot look super clean, even though it's covered in little greebly bits. The head sculpt is pretty fantastic. It's a small head, yeah, but for this stylization, it works very well, and the light piping is superb. It works so well on this guy. The weapons you get can be stored on this guy. Yes, that is an underbarrel minigun if this guy wasn't badass enough. And they can all combine into a hammer that looks kind of meh. I mean, after animated, Magnus just kind of always needs a hammer, apparently. But it looks alright. But the most impressive, the most surprising, the most interesting part about this toy is its posing. So I wanted to actually sit here and talk about the articulation one-on-one like this, as opposed to just showing it sped up and then talking about some interesting points, because it actually is really sick set of posability. We're going to do this the whole video Vangelis style. So yeah, anyways, here's a Voyager again just to show you. He's not exactly that small. Anyways, you have a very nice and expressive ball joint at the head that can do pretty much anything. Like it can go up that far, down that far. You got a whole bunch of tilt and, you know, 360 because it's a ball joint. The shoulders can rotate, which is really cool. It's also out of focus. There we go. And the shoulder can go out that far, but the shoulder pad can move to get it out even further. And then this entire chunk also moves to get the arm out at a full T pose. That's cool. And then you have an actual butterfly joint in here to get the arm to move forward. Was not expecting that on this dude. He has double jointed elbows, which is really nice, and halfway through is a swivel. So what you could theoretically do is rotate the arm this way, bring it in, and then bring it inward to get even more out of that butterfly joint. So that's really nice to see. You also have wrist articulation. It swivels and it bends in on that little plate there, which is really nice to see how that shifts, along with there is a hinge on the inside here to get the hand to move without the plate. And then if you want to rotate it past this, you can just fold this gun section up and rotate it and then close the gun section back up again to get the hand at whatever orientation you want. And this goes out really far too, which is really awesome. And then for the fingers, he's got individually posable fingers. You got knuckles on each one, and the thumb is on a ball joint, and 2 extra knuckles there. So that's really cool. And the actual fingers are on ball joints, but they don't allow for like any splay. But that's fine. And the brass knuckles can move. So that's, you can ball up a fist and then push them forward. So that's really nice as well. I love this little like attention to detail they put on this thing. Now this is my favorite part. The torso can rotate, right? You can do a full 360 degrees. He does have an ab crunch. It doesn't go back any fur. I don't know what that means. But you also have this side to side tilt on a figure this chunky. I was not expecting that in the slightest. And you have full side to side tilt. That's awesome. Then you have the hip skirts that can move up and out of the way. For ratcheted, listen to this. For Unicron Trilogy sounding ratcheted hips, they go out on a friction joint. You have thigh rotation there. You have a squeaky double jointed knee that you can do a full 180 degree bend, which is awesome. Ooh, it's squeaky. And then the ankle has some pivot, lots of pivot, but the wheels like to catch on this section here, but you can kind of like pull it further. And then you have toe joints. So there's no ankle swivel of any kind, but like you don't need that. That's a ton of posing just baked into this figure. It's so amazing. Anyways, back to the actual type of video I make. So yeah, I am 100% recommending this guy. It's fantastic with Pexus levels of posing in a design that's chunky and small. It works so damn well. Minimus is but that hardly matters in the grand scheme of things with this figure. It's an amazing piece, and I believe it's well worth its retail price. However, because this is from 2020, it's kind of hard to get at retail nowadays. I saw this going for $150 to $200 at TFCon. I paid like, I think almost $100 for this thing. That I feel like is worth it, but I wouldn't pay more than that much for this guy. But I do still recommend you find one and pick one up if you're a fan of IDW or articulated figures or just cool things in general, because this is amazing. But that has been my look at the Iron Factory Magnus. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.